I am Ethan Miller, and this story begins the day my own parents decided to destroy me. It all started with jobs, small ones, big ones, it didn't matter. I was just trying to build something for myself, but my mother and father saw me as a risky, unreliable son. One day I found out their whispers weren't whispers anymore. They had called every potential employer I ever applied to. They told everyone I was a thief, dishonest, untrustworthy. He can't be trusted. He might steal from you. It wasn't just a lie. It was a calculated plan to strip me of every opportunity, every chance I had to succeed. At first, I froze. I thought maybe it was a misunderstanding. But one day, during a job interview, I heard it firsthand. We know the kind of person he is. Your parents told us everything. I went silent. I couldn't speak. All my hopes for a future, just gone. That night, I remembered my grandmother. She had always said, "Never fear the darkness your family casts. True power comes from patience and preparation." And I realized then she had always been preparing for this moment. From that moment on, I made a decision. I would work quietly, prepare, and one day make everyone see the truth. The only person I could trust was my grandmother. Everyone else had turned against me. I didn't break. I didn't fight openly. I worked day and night. If I couldn't get a job, I started my own business. Step by step, people began to notice I was talented, capable, and far from unworthy. Grandma guided me secretly, giving advice, plans, and support. She taught me how to turn silence into power, how to let my success speak instead of arguments. One night, I sat by the window, staring at the city lights. It hit me: words, rumors, lies, accusations, they all had power only if I let them, and I wouldn't let them. I would survive, I would rise, and one day, my parents and everyone who doubted me would realize the son they called a thief was unstoppable. After my parents labeled me a thief, I realized one thing: the world believed them, and they were proud of it. At first, it stung. Friends avoided me. Employers hung up on my calls, and distant relatives sent sympathetic messages. But I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I stayed silent. Silence became my weapon. I moved to a small city no one knew me in. No Miller legacy, no reputation, no shadows. Just me. Clean, determined, and quietly relentless. I slept on a mattress in a modest apartment. I ate simple meals, worked odd jobs, and poured my free hours into my ideas. Ideas my father had always dismissed as impractical or childish. For months, I built prototypes in secret. I studied late into the night, refining every design, every process. Each success, no matter how small, felt like a quiet victory. Each failure, a lesson. Meanwhile, my grandmother kept checking in. She was my silent partner, guiding me in ways my parents could never imagine. "Ethan," she said one night over the phone, "let them talk. Let them lie. When the time comes, all their words will fall apart in front of the world. You just need to be ready." Her voice was calm, confident. Her patience became my armor. I began networking, carefully. I didn't reveal my last name. I didn't mention my family. I wanted my work to speak for itself, and slowly, it did. Investors started noticing. Small at first, modest contributions, cautious interest, but it grew. I could see the difference between those who judged me by rumors and those who judged me by results. Months passed. My parents continued their crusade from afar. They spoke of me at parties and business dinners. "Our son? Untrustworthy. He can't handle money. He's a problem." I smiled quietly when I heard the stories. Every insult, every lie fueled me. Every time they thought they were winning, I was preparing. One evening, I received an email that changed everything. "Congratulations, Ethan Miller. You have been nominated for the National Innovation Award. Live broadcast. Prime time." I stared at the screen. My heart raced not because of the award, but because of the people who would watch. My parents. All the people who had laughed at me, All the employers who had dismissed me as a thief. The thought made me smile. I prepared meticulously for the broadcast. I practiced my speech, reviewed my achievements, and visualized the moment when I would finally step into the light. Not as the thief they claimed I was, but as the unstoppable sun they tried to erase. No one outside my small circle knew what I was planning. Not friends, not relatives, only my grandmother. She nodded approvingly whenever I told her my progress, her calm confidence reminding me of the long game. The night before the broadcast, my parents were hosting a gala. They mentioned me casually. "I hope Ethan is doing okay," my mother said with a tight smile. "Yes, he's managing," my father replied. They believed the story. They told the world that I was broken, unstable, unreliable. They had no idea the son they had labeled a thief was about to stand before millions, victorious, undeniable, and in control. I lay awake that night, thinking about silence and strategy. How easy it is for some people to confuse silence with weakness. How slowly, carefully, the right preparation can make the loudest statements without a single raised voice. Tomorrow, they would see. Tomorrow, their lies would collide with the truth, and I would finally take my place not as the victim, but as the victor. The night of the broadcast arrived. I stood in the green room, suit pressed, shoes polished, heart steady. For years, my parents had thought silence meant defeat. Tonight, silence was my ally. Back at home, my parents were comfortable in their mansion, hosting a charity gala, smiling at the cameras, making sure everyone remembered the unstable, unreliable son story. Little did they know, the son they smeared to the world would soon be the center of attention. The announcer's voice echoed in the studio. And now, the National Innovation Award goes to Ethan Miller. Time slowed. I walked onto the stage, under bright lights, cameras capturing every step. Applause roared. The world was watching. The first close-up of my face flashed across the screen. My father froze mid-drink. The phone slipped from his hand. His eyes widened. My mother's polite smile cracked. Shock and disbelief filled her face. I stepped up to the microphone, calm, collected. "I want to thank everyone who believed in me," I began. "But more importantly, I want to thank those who doubted me." The audience murmured. Cameras shifted. The world leaned in. "There was a time when independence was called instability," I continued. "When silence was mistaken for weakness, and when lies could erase someone's life." The camera cut to a wide shot. Audience clapped politely, but the tension in the room was electric. "Tonight isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about truth. And sometimes, the loudest truth doesn't need to yell." The judges nodded. Reporters leaned forward. Viewers at home watched intently. Back in their living room, my parents couldn't move. No excuses, no rebuttal, just frozen faces, realizing that the world saw what they had tried to hide. After the broadcast, messages flooded my phone. Calls from colleagues, investors, and distant friends. People who had turned away when the lies circulated now reached out with apologies, admiration, and opportunities. Even now, I smiled. Not for them, but for the fact that truth finally had its day. And then came the 4 words I had expected. "We need to talk." From my father. I didn't panic. I didn't rush. I simply waited. Because now the conversation was on my terms. The broadcast had done more than just showcase my work. It had shattered their narrative. It had proven that their lies were powerless against preparation, skill, and patience. The son they had labeled a thief, a liar, and unstable, was standing tall, calm, and victorious, in front of millions. The day after the broadcast, the world had already spoken. Headlines screamed, "Ethan Miller, from silence to spotlight." National Innovation Award, winner defies family lies. But one thing stood out the most to me. The Miller family was now on the defensive. I received countless messages, congratulations, and job offers. Even old colleagues who once ignored me came forward. But my parents? They didn't dare reach out, not publicly, not privately, until my grandmother stepped in. She called me one evening. "Ethan," she said calmly, "it's time they learned the consequences. You've done everything right. Let them face the truth. She had been preparing for this moment for years, collecting evidence, keeping track of emails, documenting every lie, every slanderous phone call, every attempt to ruin me. Everything they had done to destroy me was now their undoing. When I finally met my father in person, it was at a neutral cafe. No cameras, no witnesses, except for Grandma, quietly observing. He looked smaller, older, defeated. The man who once commanded rooms and silenced conversations with a single look was now nervous. "You embarrassed us," he said. "You ruined our reputation," my mother added quietly. I looked at them calmly. "No, you ruined mine. I only survived." They tried excuses, stress, family pressure, reputation management. They pleaded for understanding, but it was too late. Everything they had whispered to the world, every employer they warned, every relative they convinced of my untrustworthiness, it was now documented. Emails, recordings, and evidence of their slander had been quietly collected by my grandmother. Weeks passed. The public slowly realized the truth. Articles and social media posts began sharing my side of the story. People finally understood who had been honest, hardworking, and falsely maligned. My parents issued a statement, a carefully worded apology, but the damage was done. Their reputation, built over decades, had cracks they couldn't repair. Meanwhile, I continued my work, projects, innovations, interviews. Every opportunity I had been denied in the past now came to me naturally, without manipulation or deceit. I didn't gloat. I didn't confront them publicly. I simply let the truth speak louder than any lie. I realized something powerful. Their labels, their lies, their power had always depended on my silence. Once I spoke through action, success, and evidence, they had no control left. That night, I called my grandmother. "You were right," I said softly. "All your patience, all your planning, it worked." She smiled. "The strongest revenge isn't anger, Ethan. It's preparation and timing. You've done both." And for the first time in years, I felt completely free. The final day came quietly. I was invited to a national conference as a keynote speaker, live broadcast, millions watching. No script, no rehearsed drama, just truth, experience, and undeniable proof of who I was. My parents didn't attend. They couldn't. Their presence would have been meaningless. Their lies had already crumbled under the weight of facts and success. I stepped onto the stage, lights bright, cameras rolling, audience hushed. "For years," I began, "I was called a thief, untrustworthy, and unstable not by strangers, but by my own parents." There was a pause. The world listened. Millions of eyes were on me. They spread lies to destroy my career, to ruin my reputation, and to control my life. I continued. But what they didn't understand is this: patience, preparation, and truth are more powerful than any lie. I revealed nothing vindictive. I shared evidence of their slander calmly, showing emails, calls, and manipulations that my grandmother had documented over the years. Every accusation they made, every attempt to ruin me, was now exposed publicly. The audience reacted with shock and support. Judges nodded, reporters whispered, and those who once believed my parents now believed me. I didn't look for apology. I didn't need forgiveness. I stood tall, confident, unstoppable. Later that evening, my father called. "We didn't think it would go this far," he said, voice small, controlled, yet trembling. I answered simply, "Neither did I," but I never stopped. My mother tried to explain, to justify, to ask for understanding. I didn't respond. Some scars aren't for healing. They are for remembering. They are for boundaries. I walked away from that call free, no longer a victim, no longer silenced, no longer defined by their lies. From that day forward, my career soared. My reputation was untouchable. Every opportunity I was denied in the past now opened naturally. And my parents? They became careful, cautious, powerless. They learned the hard way. Truth, patience, and preparation are unstoppable. Final thought: not every revenge needs to be loud or violent. Sometimes the quiet victories built over years of preparation, work, and persistence speak louder than any confrontation ever could.